Okay. Yes. So this is a Tech Talk podcast. We are three. What's the word to use? Concerned citizens who love technology and just want to give our opinions on various related tech topics. Does that sound right to you, Big Chungus?
That sounds about right. I think netizens is that the word for people on the internet, citizens of the internet?
What? That's a thing? I've never heard that before.
I mean, you can look that up, but it's netizens, I think, is what it is.
Wow. So 2020. Wow, he just stepped on me.
All right.
So I do have some stuff planned this week. Talk about contact tracing, the technical details and the implications. New computer memory technology. How much Stack Overflow sucks, in my opinion. And Amazon Enterprise Search and Services, and maybe some fun stories at the end. And then my collaborators here might have some stuff that they want to talk about if there's time permits. So with that being said, I want to talk about the contact tracing technical stuff and the implications of it. So guys, Sir Codes and Big Chungus, we've talked about this ad nauseum before. I gave my opinions on this about the contact tracing, but I didn't understand what Apple and Google were doing. I have since read their white paper and both their API white paper and their crypto white paper, and I've looked at the ACLU white paper on what they're on similar technologies to get a better sense of what Google and Apple are doing. So I think I have a much more informed opinion of this now. That being said, let me try to see if I can share with you guys.
Share screen.
Yeah, share, and I have to be careful about this because I want to.
You can select a specific tab.
Oh, so I actually have to okay, I'm gonna back out of this and look at your screen.
Yeah, just give me a second. I'm trying to get the what Google says here. I posted a lot of stuff on here, a lot of links.
Yeah, I'm assuming you guys have a lot more free time because you're out of school, right?
Yeah, well, and after this week, no, because I'm going to be working on a project with a couple, people. I guess I have to be coy about these details here, but it's an unpaid position, so I won't be getting paid for it. But I will be working on something with people.
Yeah, that's not school full time though. So I mean,
it is not.
My statement still stands.
Okay, you son of a gun.
How's school going for your codes?
It's not bad.
But yeah, what's you guys' opinions on this?
Well, I haven't fully read all of them.
Well, I mean, the contact tracing efforts. We can go over it if you want.
The high level of contact tracing, like a surface level, without knowing any of the specific details. There's different approaches, right?
We can go through it right now, or you can just talk about your opinion.
I think it's pretty interesting because like it's supposed to be anonymized, right? Mm-hmm. But technically, if you want to get into it, you can like find out what person that actually is that data you're looking at. So like you look at this.
Yeah.
What?
I was just gonna keep going.
Yeah. So you look at the cell phone data, right? And if they're using the same form of contact tracing that I've seen on Reddit and multiple Reddit posts, it's where you it's just basically taken from at a very high level. It's taken from cell phone towers, and they track your location of your cell phone. And there's a few other details there that I know I'm missing.
I think I know what you're talking about. Like that, I don't remember the application's name, but the application essentially will ping you to a location, but it won't give any of your name or anything like that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but in a business, right? Especially if you have one where there's a already low density of people, right? Hence, by the social distancing,
Are we talking about general? Are we talking about general contact tracing technology?
No, there's a specific app I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of a specific app as well.
It's not a specific. Somebody just made like a program on Reddit. They made a script, and it went over like the general idea of anonymous contact tracing.
Well, it's basically the same high level concept, right? Where you have devices, and you don't necessarily attach a name to it, but they're employees, right, of your business. Is that the same one you're thinking of?
So the one I'm thinking of is somebody, what they did was this was during like the height of Corona, where things were really getting serious. They looked at all of the cell phones that were pinging a certain tower at Myrtle Beach, and then what they did is, since cell phone data is readily available on the internet, they also looked at the people that were in addition to looking at the people at the beach, they looked at who they were in proximity to, and then looked at the cell phones of those people at the beach, like in a period of 14 days, and all the people that those people had been in contact with over that 14-day period. So it was like, okay, here's all these random people on this day, and then after these series of 14 days, here's all the people that they
So
contacted.
how do they get the names? Like
they're just dots on a graph. It's just like,
I don't think
okay.
I don't even think that qualifies as contact tracing, because contact tracing requires explicit. I mean, there's no medical benefit. I don't see any immediate medical benefit. How you put it, Sir Codes. I just don't, because with contact tracing, you need with human contact.
It's more
tracing,
like it's not so much contact tracing. So perhaps that's not the best way of describing it, but it is like enforced social distancing as well as sort of potential alerting.
Something probably like that, because with human contact tracing, not even the technology aspects of it, it involves human operators contacting people, in this case, who has COVID-19, who have been, who have taken a test and they know they've been diagnosed with COVID-19, and having the contact tracers talk to those people who've been diagnosed, ask those people who they've been in contact with, and then tracking those people and stuff. But it seems like, from what you're saying, Sir Codes, it's if officials are just taking cell phone data of some location and just plotting out population centers of massive population centers of people. So there's not the active step of actually seeking out people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and tell them they have been in contact with someone who has been diagnosed with COVID-19. So, but I mean, I did read. So I do want to clear up some misconceptions, because last time we had this talk, I believe I came off as being very against the idea, but upon some self-reflection and upon reading the Google Apple white paper, I have recently amended my thoughts, and also in light of what's going on in the world right now, especially in the States, where there's I will say that the lockdown orders have been counterproductive, considering how many people tend to disregard them. So there might be a need for a different approach,
like a mixed strategy is what you're getting at, right? Like
come again?
A mixed strategy of having people move through things, but also sort of having an understanding of like the ability to sort of quickly notify should numbers start to go up.
And this is just one aspect of it. Like, you obviously, for contact tracing to work, any technology assisted contact tracing to work, you need to have a massive tested infrastructure. But all I'm saying is that we need to consider other solutions, because the current solution we have, it's just not effective. It's being honest here. Taking any political views one might have about this, it's just, one can just see it's not being effective if you have people not necessarily obeying them. So,
so there's two different arguments, and I think this is where the security concern comes in, right? When you have contact tracing and stuff like that.
So, just to clarify, you mean technology-assisted contact tracing, right?
Technology-assisted contact tracing. The concern is, right, if it's anonymized or in some capacity, right, and you notify people and stuff like that, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But if you then allow for it to involve enforcement in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
It's very distinctly not anonymized, right? Like that, like it's one of those things where it's like, if you actually want to use the sort of employ the government in it, it no longer becomes, it can no longer be anonymous, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, if you might want to do that, you might not want to do that. You might think that that's right. You might think that it's wrong, but you need to understand that at a certain point, like things, you cross a threshold.
Yeah, I think for the most part, well, I guess let's just get into what we think contact tracing is, technology assisted contact tracing. What are our thoughts on what Apple or Google are doing? Are we in favor of it or against it? And then we'll just talk about these details as we go on. So,
can you describe sort of a little bit about the white papers and sort of like how they differ?
Okay, so I want to, if there are no objections, Sir Codes, no objections here?
Yeah, no, I don't care.
Okay, so I want to go over this thing I have on my tab here, then I'll talk about the white papers, big chunkus.
Thanks.
So Alice and Bob here. So this is what Google and Apple are saying. They're saying that it's going to require explicit user consent. They're not going to collect. They're not going to collect any personally identifiable information or user location data. And I do have something to say about the user location data, but I'll tell you that towards when I talk about the white papers and stuff. They're going to talk. It's only going to be the list of people you've been in contact with is only going to be on your phone, and people who test positive are not identified to Google or Apple or other users. In fact, they require, if you're test positive for coronavirus, you have to, with consent, upload that information to a third party public healthcare authority and have them upload that information to them. So that does require user consent. Okay, so right now Google and Apple have made an API framework for this to work, and they're planning on embedding this in their operating system. So that's a little bit of background information here. So let's just go over this diagram that Google and Apple have so graciously provided us. So you have Alice and Bob meet for the first time. They have a 10-minute conversation. While this is happening, you have anonymous identifier beacons here exchanging keys every 15 minutes using Bluetooth LE technology. And then
they don't need to pair, right? Like Bluetooth, I know, is notoriously finicky with some of that.
Yeah, so that Bruce Schneider did have some concerns about that, but again, that's going to come from my criticisms.
Oh, okay. I guess we'll save that.
We'll save that.
Sir Coates, what were you saying?
I'm saying it seemed like it should have been NFC instead of Bluetooth, but that's just mine.
NFC doesn't have to be closer.
What's an item? I'm not too familiar with NFC.
NFC tags. They're tags that are entirely passive, right? And it's like, or am I mistaking that for RFID?
No, I think you're thinking about RFID. NFC is just like Bluetooth, but there's like a few benefits to it. But I'm just saying,
is it batteryless though, or does it actually have? It has a battery, doesn't it?
I don't know, because I think I'm not sure what that product is, and we're not sponsoring anybody. But
is it a specification, Sir Coates? Is it a specification NFC? A Bluetooth? Is it another Bluetooth specification protocol?
No, it's not. No, it's entirely different thing. It's just like Bluetooth.
Okay, it's a product. Okay, well, I know the reason they're using Bluetooth LE is because of its low power, and it does. I was trying to understand how Bluetooth LE worked.
You said NFC, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't have time to do that before this meeting, so I'll go back sometime later and understand how Bluetooth LE works and why they chose to use that technology. But for all intents and purposes, they're using the technology Bluetooth LE to do this. So you have Bob, and always I find it kind of funny with any security class. It's always Alice and Bob are involved. I don't know why. Every security or computer science class always loves Alice and Bob in the conversation. So that's a little bit.
I like how his shirt isn't colored the right way. I like that.
It's always funny. So Bob is diagnosed with COVID-19, and he enters his test results in an app provided by the Public Healthcare Authority. So this is key, and this will come into one of my criticisms of how they're doing this. But Google and Apple are just building the framework so far, and their public healthcare authorities are going to build an application that uses the framework. Okay, so why Bob? Big Chunkus, yeah.
I was just going to intervene. I looked it up. NFC is a derivative of earlier RFID technology.
Okay, so it's entirely a separate thing, like Sir Code said.
Devices have built-in support for it, so yeah, device to device might be possible. I'm just not. That's not my area of expertise.
My thing is just like NFC. I know about NFC, and I just feel like Bluetooth. I would assume that you'd have to have your Bluetooth on, and you probably
would. But it's an opt-in system already, so you would expect if people are I don't know. I turn my Bluetooth off a lot.
Like I said, I think the reason they're using Bluetooth is not just any Bluetooth specifications, Bluetooth LE, because of the energy requirements. So if you do have it on, it's not going to be a huge battery drainer, as far as I know. And I could be wrong about this, but I believe it's not going to be a huge battery drainer, and that's why they chose the technology to use.
I have my own personal story on that, but I'll save it to when we give the criticisms.
Okay. So you have Bob here, who's been diagnosed with COVID-19, enters his test results in an app provided by Public Healthcare Authority. And then with Bob's consent, Bob is going to upload the last 14 days of his temporary exposure keys for his broadcast beacons to the cloud. Okay, and so they're uploaded to the cloud. The cloud is just going to be the public healthcare authority's cloud, not Google Apple's cloud service. So just to clarify that, the cloud they're uploading to is the cloud provided by the public healthcare authority here. Okay, so then later that day, Alice is going to continue on her day. And she hasn't been aware. She doesn't know she was near Bob, who was potentially contagious at the time, and her phone periodically downloads these keys from the cloud service, assuming that Alice and Bob have the same app from the Public Healthcare Authority. Downloads it to.
Well, that's a stipulation.
Well, there is also, yeah. Anyway, just keep going.
So it downloads it to her phone, and then if there's a match, this is all done on device, by the way. So the keys are on the cloud, been downloaded to her phone. The phone checks for this information on the cloud, downloads it to her phone. If there's a match, she's promptly notified on what to do next by the Public Healthcare Authority, and they make the determination if based on how close she was to Bob and other factors.
All the rest of that, yeah.
Yeah, they make the determination whether to notify her about it or if.
I also suspect that the service or whatever that Bob uploads to the government service could very well take his location and then just blank.
Yeah, that is something. That is a criticism. That's a potential criticism I have. So you're getting ahead of yourself, Big Chungus.
Well, I mean, this is from the tech company side. This is what we're doing. There's this element in here that is the government or some other regional body or whatever, and well, what they decide is on them.
Yeah, true. Although they did say Google and Apple did say they will not allow public healthcare authorities to collect location data, and they will be reviewing the apps.
But if they don't control the application, I don't think that they have any. The other application could take location data at least at the time of submission, not necessarily at the time of recording.
That is I think
you have to have your location on at all times.
Well, like for the government, no. Well, yeah, well. And yeah, the government application could just be recording your thing. Does it tell you the time?
This is a lot of information. Like if they're just storing keys as well, like even if
is it just we will come in contact?
We will go over the white paper in a second.
All right, but this is the high level sort of.
This is the high level stuff, and then Alice gets a notification from the same public authority, assuming she has the same app as Bob. Or public authorities are sharing information with each other or something like that. And it will just tell her what to do next. So this is the high-level overview of what happens. Bob and Alice together, 10 minutes, exchange keys. Bob gets sick, uploads his keys to the cloud, voluntarily, of course. They don't compel him to do so. And Alice downloads those keys to her phone, checks to see if those keys match an encounter that she had with Bob or anyone else she's been with. And if they match and they satisfy some sort of constraint, the app will alert her to take action based on how the proximity of her and Alice or other factors which determines.
Oh, because it sees the key in the cloud, so that's still on the tech side. So Alice doesn't need any government application necessarily.
Well, Alice does need to have the same app, otherwise she won't get this notification here. Does that make sense?
Okay. Vaguely. Yeah. Okay. So I think we can.
Bob and Alice have.
Again, this is a recommendation anyway, so some of this stuff may be ignored anyway. So
magic hacker.
Any thoughts so far, Rob, looking this stuff up? Well, I'm getting the information here.
Yeah, it just seems like there's a lot of if you do this. It seems like a lot of if statements in this. If they have the same app, if they have Bluetooth turned on, if he uploads his stuff to the cloud, then maybe. And then that's my first problem.
I think
that is a lot of ifs. And then
the second I would say it works with a paranoid population.
Yeah, exactly. The second problem that I have though is.
But then it wouldn't work with a paranoid population because if they're a paranoid population, would they be paranoid to all the abilities, like for the government or other people to find their location and shit?
Okay, so the second problem that I have is the data usage. I mean, like the data, like size. Like if everybody, this would only work if everybody has one app, right? And if everybody has one app and it's storing all this information, I mean, it's not anything to have a couple terabytes or a couple like 100 terabytes somewhere, but that's a lot of data going on. And if you're going to share more than just the keys, then you're going to have to share more information, which is more space. And it seems like a lot that's going on.
Yeah, so and we'll get into this, but Sir Codes, I did actually have that concern too about how much storage data is this going to take up on your phone. The keys themselves, the rolling proximity identifiers, are 16 bytes, and the
16 bytes. Oh, that's
16 bytes. Yeah, they're generated every 15 minutes, and they're 16 bytes. And the temporary exposure keys are also 16 bytes, and they're generated every 24 hours. They stay on your phone for 14 days.
Are they unconditionally done every 15 minutes? Like even if you're not in somebody's proximity?
Which one? The rolling proximity identifier or the temporary exposure key?
So this shit's gonna go crazy if you go to a concert or something. If you go to a concert with a bunch of people, you'll be like, "Oh shit, you were next to like 1,000 people."
Well, hopefully people aren't going to concerts.
Well, there's some people having like house parties and shit.
Yeah.
So it happens.
So I did all the math. I think it's 21 kilobytes per individual for a 14-day period. 21 kilobytes per individual for 14-day period.
Terrible.
So times that by, I don't know, on average, how many people do people hang out a week or so? So that might go up to the megabyte range. I think that's fine for your phone to handle.
That's reasonable. My concern, actually, even on the high end of that, that's still not going to be a lot of space on a server, unless they never decay on the server. But
that's a good question. I don't know how. I think the keys on the server are. That's up to the public healthcare authority to decide how long the keys will stay on their server and stuff. But let's go over this. Let's go over this white paper here. So, my personal thought on this, having read the white paper, I don't see any technical problems with what Google and Apple are doing. Although I do have some concerns about the public healthcare authority and what they might do with the technology. But I don't see any technical reasons. I don't see any problems with what Google and Apple are doing. So
my thoughts, if they keep to what they say, it's probably fine, right? It's an opt-in system, number one, right? So it's not mandatory, which is a little bit different than sort of the approaches of like South Korea. Number two, actually, don't quote me on that. I think theirs is mandatory. It seems like they took a decent tack to make it anonymized. I do have some concerns about ways that like the government app could completely circumvent all of that. Yeah. And then again, this is us taking their word on all of this. The only most of my concerns for stuff like this comes on the outside. Like, what if like incentive structures and stuff, and sort of how that like could go against it being a limited purpose thing, right?
Yeah.
Like how is it up to Apple and Google then if word comes out? I mean, obviously, may not necessarily get all that. If word comes out that they want to use it for other things, is it up to them to shut it down, right? Can Google stop them from, or can the government stop them from shutting that down? I mean, there seems like there would need to be some sort of like legal agreement between the federal government and the other body in terms of what they're not going to force on each other or whatnot. But potentially, but I'm optimistic, I would say.
Optimistic.
But it requires a willing and a reasonably paranoid, but not overly paranoid population.
Yeah, and like I said, I think my opinions on this have somewhat evolved. I'm not. This might surprise you guys, but I'm not completely against the use of location data. I think that could work, but it depends on how you do it. But
in a perfect world, yeah, but I just don't think we live in that world.
I think based on what Google and Apple are doing, they could reasonably. They're not using location data from what I've read, but they could make that. They could design their API. They're doing a reasonably good. But first, before I go on about that, Sir Codes, any thoughts, opinions on this? Has your opinions changed? Have they been modified?
Concerns.
Are they the same as they
Will
were?
it be effective? Not effective.
Well, I already expressed my concerns during the when you first introduced it. Like the main concerns that I had, I just think it's pretty funny how the company that's known for its security is partnering with the company that usually takes all your data whenever it can and uses it to their full advantage.
Better than Facebook,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Facebook is trying to make efforts. Google is kind of just saying, you know what we do. We take your stuff. That's our thing. That's why our shit's good. And Apple is just like, we got Siri and it's shit because we don't use any of your data because we're security focused. And I think it's funny how the two polar opposites of the tech world are coming together to make a thing that's like somewhere in the middle, but also very niche. And it has to be, it's kind of like Chungus said, it only works if the entire population or like the majority of population is using it. If there's like only 25% of people using it, then it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's not effective. And the ACLU in their white paper,
well, it's reduced, really.
I don't think it becomes effective when you have such a low adoption rate. I just think
I wouldn't even say it's reduced. I would just say it just doesn't work because if only 25% of the population is using this, then if they run into 20 people, or if they run into 100 people, they'll only get okay, you ran into 25 people. Like, no, I actually ran into 100. It's like, okay, well,
for this to succeed, you need to have high amounts of testing available, and you have to have a high adoption rate. Now, to your point,
I guess if you're not using location data, which they wouldn't be yet, you would need.
To your point, Big Chungus, I think the government could, amount a massive campaign to educate the public on the use of on using their app. So I think they could do that as opposed to compelling people to use the app, which I don't think it's legal. I don't think that's constitutionally legal. I don't think you can compel a person to do that. But I think a massive campaign to do it. And again, so my thoughts on this, and I'll state my previous thoughts before. So my previous thoughts, based on the secondhand information I saw online, I was against the idea of using contact tracing. I guess to be more exact here, what Google and Apple were doing, because I heard contact tracing, I heard government tracking you, and I just sort of shut myself out to any further considerations of what they might be doing. But a couple of things that changed my mind was reading their white paper on this, and also some respected security YouTubers did talk about it, and they did read the white paper, and they did say that they didn't have any concerns with it. So I took it upon myself to actually read the white paper and stuff.
A lot of this does come down to if they say what they're going to do in the paper, then it should be fine, probably, right?
Yeah.
Some of the technical concerns.
No. Just because the technology, just because their framework's good, doesn't mean people who use their framework have no bad intent.
Yeah. I'm saying if you stick to the idea, right? Like if you stick to what it should be, and maybe you can argue about maybe the letter of it, but then it's probably not going to be the worst thing in the world. But there has to be some inroads with trust on that.
Well, I want to just quickly recap my opinion here. My opinion did change. I think that location data can be used because you kind of want to know where COVID-19 hotspots are happening. However, you don't want to be able to track a person down. So it should only be sparingly used. We can talk about that next week, how I think that can work with what Apple and Google are currently doing. So one of my concerns is just because the framework's secure doesn't mean the app is necessarily secure. But Google and Apple say they're gonna vet it. That's what they're saying. They're gonna vet the public healthcare apps, and only public healthcare apps, public authority apps, can make apps that use the technology and stuff. I also worry about fragmentation because you could have different states coming out with their own apps, and that might just cause a lot of confusion and stuff. And I'm curious about what Google and Apple's exit strategy are, because they're going to embed this in their they're going to embed the API in their operating system. So how long is that going to stay on the operating system when COVID-19's done with?
Yeah, like the limited use part of it.
Yeah, and I think what you said, well, Big Chunk, is just the trust aspects of it, right? You have to, most importantly, you just have to have user trust. If you don't have user trust in this, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, nothing else we're doing is working, so you might as well just give this a shot. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that. Now, I did, this is something I enjoy talking about. You guys also, you talk about stuff you want to talk about, but it's 2 short stories here. I think you guys will like it. Maybe for you, Big Chunkus, the new computer memory technology story. So if you guys open that on...
I have. It's a short one, right?
Yeah, could you share your screen? Are you able to share your screen right now?
Give me 1 second. Let me adjust my stuff. Click here. Host is disabled, so you're gonna have to enable me.
Do I have to enable? Okay. Yeah.
By default, all these things don't have that on.
Yeah. So who can share? All participants. Who can start sharing when someone is sharing?
You've enabled it.
Are you able to share your screen or not? Oh, yep.
Okay. So. Nope. That's just okay. Let's decide to have
Racetrack.
There's
the Pentagon.
Wait, are you sharing your screen right now?
I am.
I can't see it.
Interesting.
Codes. Can you see it?
Yeah.
That is interesting. I don't know. I can't see it.
And because you're not in America right now.
Oh, I do see it. Never mind. I do see it. Okay, go on. Okay, so let me talk about that. So give you guys some background information here. There's some physics stuff, which I just will explain in a second. Scrimions are quasi particles in condensed matter systems, and they can be described as a knot of twisting field lines or subatomic hurricanes. And they're very complicated to explain intuitively, and physicists just rely on the math. So that's going to come in play about the new computer memory technology that these guys are researching and stuff. Okay, so researchers at NYU have come up with a new digital data storage technology, or data storage. They call a racetrack memory. The racetrack seeks to increase the density of information storage, allows for faster operations, and utilize low energy. So normally with hard drives, you have a spindle that seeks data on moving platters on a hard drive. However, the racetrack technology doesn't require the material to move as the data itself moves. And how that's accomplished is by using scrimions to move the data. So when electric current is passed through the scrimions, it will curl up like a ball, and then the resultant balls represent pieces of data. So scrimions are high speed and require little energy, so computation time is improved, and the energy, so is energy efficiency, and the amount of data that can be potentially stored. So currently the problem here is, this is just all research here. Currently the problem here is finding the ideal material for scrimions to move in. So far, ferromagnets, magnetic materials is looking like the best option to use.
So like magnetite stuff, or like
so it's ferromagnets. If you go down a bit, down, I think you should stop here. Stop, go up. It's the last sentence. And where does it say? Yeah, yep. See, team has identified magnetic materials with small electric fields, known as ferromagnets, as the best option. You see that? The team has identified magnetic materials.
Yeah. Towards the top. Well, I guess it's now it's at the bottom.
Yeah, there. The team has identified magnetic materials, and it's the first sentence.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems super high level, but it seems interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
this is a picture of
That's the material. That's the material, and the black dots, I believe, are the scrimians that are moving about.
Huh, okay.
Yep. And again, their purpose is you pass an electric current to them, and then they move, and that's supposed to decrease and increase computation time, increase energy efficiency, and the amount of data that's potentially could be stored.
So how does it compare to flash memory then on that, or is it just?
No, flash memory is. I mean, it's in theory it's supposed to surpass any sort of storage technology we have so far.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted. That's something I saw that was pretty interesting.
It's a permanent, right?
Yeah, they call it memory. They call it memory, but I think that's misleading. That's what criticism I had of this article. Memory, it means something specific. It
means the temporary storage that gets wiped on power off.
Yeah, it's like volatile memory. Yeah, so this is more storage, long-term storage. So non-volatile.
Okay.
Yeah, which I guess is called memory. Non-volatile memory is storage, but yeah. So I mean, that's
there is a what's the memory hierarchy? I think is why they refer to it as memory.
Yeah, they were referring to that because of people who aren't knowledgeable about computer technology. They wanted to just refer that to people who knew about that. So, okay. I mean, you guys have thoughts, opinions on this, or just me just talking here?
I don't have many other thoughts on this. It's a nice, short, sweet, down to the point.
Yeah, I don't have any other thoughts.
Interesting thing to look out for. I'm just gonna quick, short one. I'm looking at some stuff. There's been some stuff popping through my feed about different groups trying to, number one, drone technology and some security concerns with that regarding enforcing lockdowns and whatnot. Mm-hmm. It's a bit of an old article. There's a bit of a hindsight to it now, a little bit more, at least when the story broke. There were people trying to tamping onto that, trying to create face mask detectors.
Yeah.
And then I have the other side of that, another article where clothing designers making masks to break facial recognition software applications and protests and whatnot. So those are interesting. Coupled with, I wanted to look into a cursory. I may not have any leads on it, whether or not it's possible or reasonable to reverse the or recreate a database from a neural network, knowing certain ways about how it was trained.
Is that the project you're working on, Big Chunkus?
No, but largely because I don't know how I would even start on that. So I'm just kind of curious if somebody's already started it. If somebody hasn't, then I'll look into it. But I suspect that somebody's attempted at least a cursory look at how to reverse engineer a neural network to get its image data.
How is your computer so far? Is it pretty good? Any problems with it?
It is fine. I would definitely enjoy another article I'm going to talk about, which is the rumored NVIDIA 3080 card that should be announced soon. Okay. So we'll see if that becomes a real thing by the next cycle. Definitely won't be able to afford it, but or justify a purchase, I guess, is really what.
At least not until you finish with the stuff you're doing in your spare time, I guess.
Yeah. I would need a good justification for it, and I don't think I have a good justification for it. Yeah. That's it for me and what I've got cooking loosely.
That's their codes?
Yeah, for me, what I'm working on, still working on the app. Right now, I'm just about. I'm going through, like, not every day, but when I do development, I'm finding out things that it has to have that I kind of didn't think about, and then after I get like this final rough draft of everything, all the features that it should have for it to be coherent, then I'm going to make the diagram. Whatever.
UML.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to make a UML diagram.
Modeling language.
Yep. Do that. But
I guess it's a UML model or something. But yeah.
Yeah. Aside from that, I've just been watching Elon Musk and his Twitter shenanigans.
Yeah, I was gonna say I am gonna start learning Rust.
Nice.
Hopefully this week.
Is
that was a fun
Rust is that
language.
similar to Haskell?
No, it's similar to C and C and C++, but it does memory management
yeah.
for you. It has to.
Oh, it's like it's Java. It's basically Java.
Whoa, Java is a a object-oriented programming language. Rust is again it's procedural based.
I think Rust is functional programming, isn't it?
No, I don't think it's functional programming at all. I think it's similar to C and C++, but it's just has the benefits of memory containment, memory management.
Does it run on the JVM? You know?
Nope. It's made by some Brazila engineers. Let me just quickly look it up. Yep, it's focused on performance and safety, and it's syntactically similar to C++. Provides garbage collection. So for all intents and purposes, it is similar to C++. It's not Java. Java is object-oriented. C++ and C. Well, C++ is just can be object-oriented, but it's it can be also other stuff as well. But Rust, think of Rust as very similar to C, but with more memory protections.
Okay.
So and garbage collection. So
Okay.
I'm going to spend some time learning that either this week or next week.
For what?
Because it's a hot new technology.
It's not really
Rust
new.
is not that new, but it may be the uses of it.
Well, it came out 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's not
I guess
really
that's
new.
that's not really new.
Go is new.
Go is Crash.
That's
too.
hilarious.
I mean, it's Microsoft has been using it. Some people at Microsoft have been using it lately. So
I mean, Rust.
yeah,
The entire
NPM
Mozilla and Mozilla fucking web browser is made off of Rust. So
like I said, it's according to Wikipedia, it is based. It has almost the same performance as C and C++, but provides safe. Provides garbage.
Everybody claims that it's close to C. Just I've seen C compiled Python claiming that it's just as good as C.
Well, the C compiled Python have strong types. Does it have strong types and stuff? It's just Python is compiled. It just seems like
so the thing about it is that it lets you run it, generally speaking, but then it double checks to make sure that that you specified there's certain type defs for it, and then so basically certain segments of your code get C compiled if they are fit it like functions.
I just think, and I could be wrong.
The rest of it is like interpreted.
I just think C compiled Python Python isn't built to be compiled. So
I would agree.
compiling it.
It runs to a bunch of issues, and generally speaking, it's a fail silently thing, which is not good if you're trying to design efficient code. I've had issues with trying to run stuff on the GPU and it not crashing, just taking 4 times longer, which is the opposite of helpful. So, because it was supposed to split up a loop and it didn't split up the loop right, and
nobody cared about
the technical TLDR. It's I have no problems with it. You can, and this is the most annoying thing, you can do like other programming languages in it and to utilize their efficiency. There are plugins for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's ugly. You're using a string. It's not great. But that's my thoughts.
So Rust is designed. I could be wrong on this. So if we ever get substantial amount of viewers, just know, and I'm wrong, please don't kill me in the comment section. But
the comment section? Oh God, what are we? Where are we?
After I review the video, I will send it to you guys and stuff and have you guys review it. But I guess I will upload it at a certain timeline. So whether you guys give me feedback or not. But to answer your question or to respond to what you said, Chungus, Rust is designed with efficiency and safety in mind, unlike Python, which was not the primary purpose of it. And Java has a JVM, which the Java code runs on top of. So I think it's much more faster than Java language.
Yeah.
So
Codes. What was the language that we worked with that was run on the JVM, but it wasn't Java? It wasn't Haskell, was it? It was.
Wait, what'd you say? Did you say Codes? You're talking to me?
Yeah. Codes. That's your name, right? Codes.
Shut the fuck up, hacker. What'd you say?
What was the? There's a language that we used briefly that was on the JVM. That was.
We're talking about our functional language programming class.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I can look through my school notes and try to find it, but we
It's not
went
that
through
big.
like 8
it wasn't
languages.
Lisp. It was Clojure, wasn't it?
It probably was. I remember us doing Clojure.
Was that the first one we did? What was the first one we did? It was the first one we did.
All those languages seemed the same. Like after a while, it was just like learning a new language every week. Kind of got a little like they all kind of blended together. It's just like a big fucking functional programming type of. Rust was my favorite of the three of like all the 8 though.
You do know about Rust.
We use Rust, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, because you guys were so confused when I said similar to
Scala. That was it.
Yeah.
Clojure is also on the JVM, but it's Scala. There is an implementation of Haskell on the JVM, although it's not necessary.